Thank you for watching. My name is Glenn Morgan, and this is We the Govern. Today I'm reporting on the Medical Freedom Rally this last weekend in Olympia, where thousands showed up to protest Inslee's mandate. You will see photos and images that you probably will see nowhere else. Okay, we are back in Washington State, and this is the state of the eternal lockdown, the lockdown that never ends, the emergency that never ends. Governor Inslee has assured us that it is never going to end and that he's the only one who can solve all of our problems. Now, as a trigger warning, just real quick before we get going too much further, again, as always, nothing I say has been approved by Inslee's Ministry of COVID Compliance, so anybody who only wants to hear what the government wants to tell you had better shut off this station and this channel right now and stop watching. So with that, I have done a couple of videos and an article earlier about the Medical Freedom Rally that was scheduled for October 3rd on Sunday at the state capitol. And it was advertised even here on billboards along I-5. And there were quite a few people that showed up. You had, according to the State Patrol, about 3,000 people. It was somewhere between 3,000 and 4,000 people. It really starts to get hard to figure out how many people are there because the space that it was located is between the state capitol and the Temple of Justice, and people tend to flow out into the lawns and the fields out beyond that. So crowd estimation is kind of difficult once you get to a certain size. But it was easily somewhere in that 3,000 to 4,000 range, which is one of the larger rallies so far that's happened in Olympia on the west side. There's a rally about the same size in Spokane here a couple weeks ago. And again, of course, the theme was the Medical Freedom Rally. You had a lot of state workers showing up because of Inslee's mandate threatening to fire all the employees in this, any public employee in the state of Washington that doesn't want to get Inslee's jab or the vax. And so you really had a large number of employees, whole spectrum of employees from all different state agencies that showed up to protest. And these protests have only been getting larger because the October 18th deadline that Inslee set is coming up. And people are wondering, is he bluffing? Is he really going to bring the National Guard in to take their place? It's unknown. But along with the signs and the people who were there, there was, of course, quite a bit of political theater, people dressing up, bringing their signs. And sometimes I think this is important. It's a good way to just express yourself when you're in a crowd full of other people. It isn't all about the speakers, but there were some good speakers there as well. This is Ari Hoffman, who's a talk show host from Seattle, a good friend of mine. I've known him for a long time. And you also had Matthew Hayward here. Matthew Hayward, I was able to introduce him. He's an activist who works at the Freedom Foundation now. But I know he and I had spent, if you want to know what an activist really does and who they are, Matthew and I remember had spent all night one time putting up campaign signs until the sun rose in the morning. Not too many people are willing to spend their evenings and days doing stuff like that, and Matthew's one of them. And so it was good to see him there. But you also had not just state workers, but you also had other people like students, for example, who wanted to express themselves on the concerns that they had had about the impact of the mandates on education and their experience in the education system and all the drama that's going on all around Washington State right now. And you also had, right in the beginning of the rally, you had a bunch of people that marched in with the Comply group, the blank-faced people coming in, told to comply and obey. And that's essentially how the government wants most of us to behave with everything that they say. I mean, it was Inslee, after all, who said that we weren't obeying him and that we were being insubordinate because Inslee has forgotten exactly who he works for. So there was all kinds of real interesting images there. Of course, people also wore their opinions and their expressions on their shirts. And it wasn't always about Inslee. Sometimes it was about Joe Biden. And other times it was very focused on the fact that coercion is not consent. And the recent mandates, of course, do threaten state workers and contractors at both the federal and the state level, but the state level deadline's coming up first with being fired, losing their retirement benefits, for example, not being able to collect unemployment if they refuse to get the jab for whatever reason. Even though Washington State has an incredibly high rate of participation in getting the vaxes, what you're seeing is that the people who aren't going to get it or don't want to get it or don't want to get it for religious reasons, they're the ones that are being persecuted right now. And of course, there was a board there for people to sign up. State workers that were going to be fired, or some of them who actually already had been fired, were up there signing on the board and identifying themselves and telling their story. There's two sides to that board. I mean, there was really quite a few people there. The board wasn't large enough. And of course, there were a lot of signs. Again, people were expressing themselves, not too happy with Inslee. He was probably not very popular in this crowd, even for the group of people there who might have voted for him the first time. And you also had some not safe for work type of signs that were up there that needed a little bit of censorship, as I was showing you here on the video. So it was really quite a wide spectrum of people who were fairly annoyed about what was going on. The annoyance, of course, is pretty extreme. Imagine if you were going to be threatened with your career to be ended just because of a randomly imposed mandate from your governor. And freedom, not force, was definitely a common concern with both the speakers and dominantly throughout the people that were there based on the things they were saying and what they were showing. There were also some signs, of course, that seemed to focus again, as they have in the past, on Inslee's little prick when it comes to the vaccine and the jab. Keep your tiny prick away. That was, of course, a classic sign. And the one that I shared from the rally a few weeks ago that has gotten a lot more attention, Inslee, please don't force your tiny prick on me. These signs were all over. And really this kind of focused on some of those, and not everybody there was unvaccinated, but a lot of them were. And they were basically talking about how unvaccinated lives do matter. They've been turned into second-class citizens based on this kind of a decision, and government seems to be enthusiastically wanting to persecute and destroy their lives simply because they can, since the concept of herd immunity has now been relegated into that science has just chosen to ignore it. A lot of signs there. There were a lot of people. I couldn't take photos, of course, of all the signs, but just to give you an image of and a sense of what was there, the idea of natural immunity is real was interesting because that actually was a theme that I found on several of these signs, and it was kind of a focus issue because, of course, the pretense of the Inslee administration is they care about science, and yet that's only true when it's convenient for them. When it's not, they choose to ignore it, and having natural immunity, of course, is a problem because it's free. It doesn't allow you to spend your money or have somebody spend money on a vax that somebody wouldn't need in that case. Nevertheless, that's what was going on. This is what they were expressing. When it comes to my body, I call the shots. This was a particularly significant comment because, as we've discussed before, Inslee no longer believes it's your body or your choice. He believes that your body is his, and he gets to call the shots and make the choice for you. So that was also part of the frustration. And of course, that leads to people being quite upset about their liberties and freedoms being taken away. And you really saw it expressed in a lot of different ways. And of course, concerns about what people are being told. For instance, the fact that the media blanked out this entire rally and acted like it didn't exist, with a limiting one example of the Olympian who was able to roll out of bed and walk up the street and at least take a couple photos and a little interview. My favorite sign there this time was actually identify as fully vaxxed. After all, you can identify as anything you want, regardless of how you're born. And so this brought up an interesting question for government policymakers as we move forward. And what was on everybody's mind is, where does it end? People want the emergency to end. Exactly when is that going to happen? And it appears to be entirely at the whim of one man. And that man is Governor Inslee, who's decided that he is the only one on planet Earth that can save us. And he said so in a TVW interview just a few days actually before this rally. And this interview was brought up by many of the speakers and was discussed widely by the thousands of people who were there. And it was weird. I mean, it was definitely a weird thing for Governor Inslee to say. And frankly, it supports this idea that came out of the city of Winlock about Inslee having a narcissistic personality disorder. He may deny that he has it, but he's showing a lot of the characteristic traits of someone who does have it, which is why you saw that now the city of Winlock, as you've reported in the past, is having a Freedom Wean event. Let Freedom Wean, the day before Halloween, and it's going to be focused on the fact that Inslee not only has been demanding these mandates never end and that everybody follow him and obey, and please don't be subordinate, Inslee's own words, don't be subordinate, and also using the theme of the Scarecrow from The Wizard of Oz. If you don't know about The Wizard of Oz, which means you're going to be a fairly younger generation, definitely go look down below. I've linked to a little video clip and you'll understand why the theme of if I only had a brain seems to apply to Inslee. It's not just the fact that he looks like the Scarecrow from The Wizard of Oz, but the theme behind it really does apply to that theory. So I'm sure that anybody who is interested in having a good time in Winlock on October 30th, you'll get a better sense of what's going on if you see that video clip, if you don't understand the reference already. But regardless, a lot of people showed up this weekend, thousands and thousands of them. So that 3,000 to 4,000 is not a small number of people to show up in Olympia. Parking gets tough when you have that many people there. I-5 got backed up. There were a lot of people who showed up on this issue, and many of those people were new. And the reality is, as people start to show up and realize that nobody's coming to save them, that they're going to have to save themselves, a lot of these people are going to be organizing, and they're going to be starting to make a difference. A lot of them are very new to this process. But as the days go by and the weeks go by, and we see if Inslee is bluffing or not, the impact on the state is going to be felt one way or the other. So thank you so much for watching this video. If you want to learn more, please go to wethegovern.com. Also, don't forget to subscribe and share this video with others. That is the dominant way that this story gets out. I am sure this channel is shadow banned, and that's the only way that you'll most likely see it. But I do appreciate those who want to share. And again, if you want to sign up for our website, you can also do that down below. If you want to support We the Govern, you can do that down below as well. And remember, the future does belong to those who show up.